Family betrayal cuts deeper than any knife. When the people you sacrificed everything for turn their backs on you, the pain becomes something entirely different. I never imagined my own daughter's husband would look me straight in the eyes and tell me there was no room for me in the house I helped build with my own money. But he did, and that moment changed everything. I can still feel the weight of those words pressing against my chest. The casual cruelty in his voice as he stood there in my doorway, designer watch glinting on his wrist, paid for with money I'd given them for their anniversary. "We need this space for our family now, Evelyn," he said, as if I wasn't family at all. My name is Evelyn Brooks. At 66, I spent my life as an elementary school principal in Jackson, Mississippi. I raised my daughter Danielle all by myself after her father walked away when she was just 9 years old. For decades, every choice I made, every extra shift, every missed vacation, every penny saved, was to make sure she'd never lack what I lacked growing up. When Danielle met Tyrone Harris in her senior year of college, I saw the warning signs. His charm was too polished, his promises too grand. But my daughter's eyes lit up when he entered a room, and I told myself that her happiness was all that mattered. Who was I to judge the man she loved? Then came their dream of owning a home. They found this beautiful 5-bedroom house in suburban Jackson. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, a yard big enough for future grandchildren to play in. But the price tag was steep for a young couple just starting out. "Mom, we're so close to qualifying," Danielle told me over Sunday dinner. "If we just had a larger down payment." So I sold my parents' property, the last connection to my childhood. I dipped into my retirement savings, funds meant to carry me through my golden years. And I handed them $180,000 for their down payment. The agreement was clear. The downstairs guest suite would be mine someday if I needed it. Danielle nodded eagerly. Tyrone looked me in the eye, shook my hand and said, "Of course, Miss Evelyn. This is your home too." Have you ever watched someone lie to your face while counting your money? Subscribe now so you'll recognize the signs before it's too late. Also download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. I didn't see it then. I was too caught up in Danielle's happiness, in the promise of family gatherings in that beautiful kitchen, in the hope of grandchildren running through those halls. I saw what I wanted to see. I heard what I wanted to hear. 2 years later, after a mild stroke left me unable to live alone, I sold my modest home. I gave up my independence. I moved into that downstairs guest suite, the one that was supposed to be mine. I even continued contributing to household expenses. I never wanted to be a burden. The first few months were fine. Danielle checked on me daily. Tyrone remained polite, if distant. But things changed when my daughter became pregnant with their first child. Suddenly, there were comments about needing more space. Questions about other arrangements. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. I told myself it was just the stress of impending parenthood. I ignored the locked kitchen cabinets. I pretended not to notice when my designated parking spot was taken. I stayed silent when Tyrone's business associates filled the living room with cigar smoke while I tried to rest. Then came that family meeting. Tyrone standing like he owned the world. My daughter staring at the floor. The words that shattered everything, "There's just no room for you here anymore." I could have argued. I could have reminded them whose money built the foundation they stood on. I could have screamed and cried and begged my daughter to remember who I was, who we were. Instead, I simply nodded and said, "All right." Tyrone smirked. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. I believed him. I believed both of them. That was my first mistake. My relationship with Danielle has always been special. She was my miracle baby, born when I was 40 after years of praying for a child. Her father, Richard, couldn't handle parenthood and disappeared one night, leaving nothing but empty promises and a half-empty closet. Just like that, it was Danielle and me against the world. I rebuilt my life around her needs. I took night classes to earn my master's in education while working days. I climbed from teacher to principal over 15 years, all while never missing a recital, a parent-teacher conference, or a bedtime story. We didn't have much, but we had each other. When Danielle got accepted to Spelman College, I cried for hours. Not from sadness, but from pride. My girl, the first in our family to attend college. I worked extra consulting jobs so she wouldn't have to take out loans. You focus on your studies, I told her. Let me worry about the money. Then during her senior year, she called me, voice bubbling with excitement. Mom, I met someone. His name is Tyrone Harris. He's in business school, and Mom, I think he's the one. The first time I met Tyrone, he arrived with a bouquet of flowers, not for Danielle, but for me. He asked thoughtful questions about my career. He complimented my home cooking. He talked about his 5-year plan to launch a luxury clothing brand. I admire strong women, he told me over dessert. Danielle gets that from you. But there were red flags. The way he checked his 3 phones constantly. How he'd drop names of celebrities he claimed to know. The stories that shifted slightly with each telling. How he never seemed to have money despite his designer clothes and fancy car. He's interning right now, Danielle explained. His big break is coming soon. Their wedding was beautiful, and completely paid for by me. $20,000 for a backyard ceremony that Tyrone insisted needed a champagne fountain and a photographer who'd worked with some reality TV star. I didn't object. When Danielle waltzed around in her Vera Wang dress, her happiness was worth every penny. I overheard one of Tyrone's friends at the reception. Man, you scored big time. Mother-in-law with deep pockets. Tyrone laughed it off. Nah man. I love Danielle. The rest is just bonus. A chill ran through me, but I pushed it aside. Was I being overprotective? Prejudiced against his ambition? I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Have you ever ignored red flags because you were afraid of what you might find? Leave a comment if you've ever missed warning signs in someone you trusted. For the next few years, I watched from a distance as Danielle supported Tyrone's ventures while working full-time as a nurse. First came the clothing line that folded after 6 months. Then the motivational speaking tour that never took off. Then the crypto investment scheme that mysteriously needed more capital. Each failure was someone else's fault. A partner who cheated him, market conditions, haters who didn't believe in his vision. And each time, Danielle would call me, voice tight with worry about their finances, but never directly asking for help. I'd volunteer it anyway. Just a little something to get you through the month, I'd say, transferring $1,000 here, $2,000 there. Then came their house dream, and my biggest financial sacrifice. $180,000 that represented everything I'd saved and inherited. Life was relatively peaceful until 2 years ago when I woke up one morning and couldn't feel the right side of my body. The ceiling spun above me as I fumbled for my phone. The paramedics later told me I managed to dial Danielle before collapsing. The stroke wasn't severe, but recovery would take time. Physical therapy. Cognitive exercises. No driving. No living alone. Mom, you're moving in with us, Danielle insisted from my hospital bedside. The downstairs suite, remember? It's always been yours. Tyrone stood behind her, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Of course, Ms. Evelyn. Family takes care of family. I sold my home of 20 years within a month. The housing market was hot, and I got a good price, $285,000 that went into my retirement account. I packed up my life into boxes, keeping only what would fit in the downstairs suite of their home. "I'll contribute," I insisted, writing my first check for $800 toward household expenses. The first few months were an adjustment, but peaceful. Danielle checked on me daily. Tyrone remained cordial, if increasingly absent. I recovered slowly, regaining my independence bit by bit. Meanwhile, Tyrone's latest venture was floundering. A luxury sneaker reselling business run from their garage. I'd hear arguments late at night. "We're 3 months behind on the credit cards, Tyrone. Baby, this is how business works. You gotta spend money to make money. The mortgage is due next week. We don't have enough. Your mother can help. She always does." And I did help, quietly covering bills when they forgot to ask for my monthly contribution, buying groceries without mentioning it, paying for home repairs when their air conditioning broke midsummer. Then Danielle discovered she was pregnant. Malik was born on a rainy April morning. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of pure joy with his mother's eyes and his father's dimples. I fell in love instantly, spending hours rocking him while Danielle rested and Tyrone networked. But Malik's birth marked a shift in the household. Tyrone began making comments about their space and their family. He started referring to me as your mother, instead of Miss Evelyn, when speaking to Danielle. "The baby needs more room to grow," he'd say, eyeing my suite. "We should think about converting that space eventually." I pretended not to notice how Tyrone's associates would stare at me when they came over, as if wondering why this old woman was still around. I ignored how Tyrone would turn down the thermostat despite knowing my circulation wasn't what it used to be. I didn't comment when he'd take business calls in the common areas, voice deliberately loud as if to claim territory. The breaking point came when Malik was 6 months old. Danielle returned to work, and I offered to watch him during the day. "Absolutely not," Tyrone said, too quickly. "My mother is coming to stay with us for a while. She'll watch him." Danielle looked as surprised as I felt. "Your mother? You didn't tell me." "I just decided," he interrupted. "It makes more sense." His mother never came. Instead, Danielle adjusted her schedule, working nights while Tyrone supposedly watched the baby, though I often heard Malik crying while Tyrone was on the phone in another room. I'd get up and quietly take care of my grandson, returning to my room before Tyrone noticed. The message was clear: I was becoming unwelcome in their home, the very home my money had helped purchase. The hostility grew like a shadow, lengthening as the months passed. Tyrone stopped acknowledging me entirely some days. No good morning, no eye contact at dinner. Just silence and cold shoulders. If I was in the kitchen when he entered, he'd sigh loudly. "Don't you ever rest?" he'd mutter, as if my presence was exhausting. When I'd watch television in the living room, always keeping the volume low, he'd arrive with his friends, turn it up, and talk over whatever program I was watching until I retreated to my room. Danielle witnessed these small cruelties but said nothing. Her eyes would flicker between us, torn, before finding some excuse to leave the room. The bright, confident daughter I raised was fading into someone who flinched at loud voices and checked her husband's mood before speaking. Have you ever watched someone you love change before your eyes? Comment yes, if you've seen a loved one transform under negative influence. One afternoon, I overheard Tyrone on the phone through the kitchen vent that connected to my bathroom. "Nah man, the old lady's still here. But not for long." His voice carried clearly. "I'm working on Danielle. Few more weeks, I'll convince her we need to put her mom in one of those senior apartments." My hand froze on my hairbrush. Senior apartments? I was fully recovered. Independent. Contributing financially. "Yeah brother, once she's gone, we're converting that suite into my office space. Expand the business, you know? Plus, there's the equity in this house. If we refinance, pull some cash out, we could really scale up." My heart pounded. The equity in this house. My equity, my $180,000 that made this house possible. Danielle's too soft. Always worried about her mama's feelings. But I'm the man of this house now. What I say goes. That night, I waited until Danielle came home from her shift. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes as she heated leftover dinner in the microwave. "Baby, can we talk?" I asked softly. She glanced toward the stairs, checking if Tyrone was awake. "Can it wait, Mom? I'm beat. It's important. About my living situation." Alarm flickered across her face. "What about it?" I told her what I'd heard. Her face crumpled, then hardened. "Mom, Tyrone talks big sometimes. He doesn't mean it." "Danielle, he specifically mentioned putting me in senior housing." She shook her head. "He wouldn't do that without discussing it with me first. You're my mother." "Then why is he telling his friends it's already decided?" She pushed her food away, appetite gone. "I'll talk to him." But she never did. Or if she did, nothing changed. In fact, things got worse. The next day, I found the kitchen cabinets locked, the ones where I kept my special tea and sugar-free snacks. "For the baby's safety," Tyrone explained, not meeting my eyes. "Can't have him getting into things." Malik couldn't even crawl yet. My designated parking space in the driveway was suddenly filled with Tyrone's friends' cars. "Business partners," he'd say with a shrug when I had to park on the street and walk half a block. The temperature in the house was perpetually too cold for my comfort, but when I adjusted the thermostat, it would mysteriously reset. One evening, I came home from physical therapy to find Tyrone had moved my family photos from the hallway table to a box in my room. In their place stood his sneaker business awards and a large portrait of just him, Danielle, and Malik. I was being erased from the common spaces. Confined to my suite like a tenant rather than family. Danielle became my ghost daughter, appearing briefly, always with excuses about why she couldn't talk, couldn't help, couldn't stand up to him. Always rushing off to work or to care for Malik or to handle some crisis Tyrone had created. I tried reaching her one more time. "Danielle, I'm worried about you. About us." "There's nothing to worry about, Mom," she said, her voice flat, rehearsed. "He's isolating you. From me, from your friends. That's not healthy." She looked up, a flash of recognition in her eyes, quickly replaced by fear. "You don't understand. Tyrone's under a lot of pressure with the business. He needs my support right now." "And what about what you need? What Malik needs?" Her phone buzzed. Tyrone, checking in. She flinched. "I have to go." That's when I realized I had lost my daughter to fear. She was trapped in Tyrone's web, too frightened or too exhausted to break free. The final escalation came swiftly. 3 stern knocks on my door one evening as I read in bed. Tyrone, standing tall in designer loungewear, face arranged in what he probably thought was a sympathetic expression. "Miss Evelyn, we need to have a family meeting tomorrow evening. Everyone needs to be there." The formal tone. The forced politeness. The absolute certainty in his voice. I knew what was coming. "What's this about, Tyrone?" "Just some household matters we need to discuss." His eyes darted around my suite, already measuring, reimagining. I nodded, playing along. "Of course. What time?" 7. After dinner. He turned to leave, then stopped. "And Evelyn? I hope you'll be reasonable about what we need to discuss. For everyone's sake." The threat hung in the air between us. Sleep escaped me that night. I lay awake cataloging my options, my resources, my leverage. I thought of Danielle, of how fear had transformed her. I thought of Malik, growing up watching his father bulldoze boundaries. I thought of my $180,000 investment in this house, given freely out of love. And I thought of the deed to the property, the legal document I'd insisted on reviewing before handing over my money. The family meeting felt like a performance. Tyrone had positioned the furniture like some corporate boardroom, himself at the head, Danielle to his right holding Malik, and me across from them both. "Evelyn," he began, dropping even the pretense of Ms. now. "You've been here for almost 2 years, and we appreciate everything you've done." His voice dripped with false sincerity. "But with Malik growing, and with my business expanding, there's just no room for you here anymore. We need this space for our family." There it was. So casual, so cruel. The dismissal from the home my money had helped buy. I looked at Danielle. Her eyes were fixed on Malik, refusing to meet mine. "Danielle," I said softly, "is this how you feel too?" She flinched. Tyrone answered for her. "This is a joint decision. We think it's best if you look into those senior communities. Nice ones, with activities and people your age." "I see," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "And when would you like me to leave?" Tyrone seemed surprised by my calm. He'd expected tears, arguments, resistance. "Within the month, ideally. I have some contacts who can help you find a place." I nodded slowly, looking between them. "My daughter. My son-in-law. My grandson." "All right," I said finally. "If that's what you both want." Relief washed over Tyrone's face. Victory. Danielle finally looked up, confusion in her eyes. She'd expected me to fight. But I had stopped fighting battles the usual way a long time ago. Some wars are won with quiet strategy, not noisy confrontation. Tyrone celebrated that night. I heard the champagne cork pop from my room. Heard him on the phone with his friend. "Got it done, man. The old lady's out in a month. Then we refinance, pull out some cash, expand the business. It's all coming together." He thought he'd won. The smirk on his face the next morning as he sipped coffee in the kitchen said it all. He barely glanced my way as I prepared my toast and tea. "Finding any good senior places?" he asked, not bothering to hide his smugness. "I'm looking into my options," I replied calmly. And I was. Just not the options he imagined. That afternoon, while Tyrone was out and Danielle was sleeping after her night shift, I made my first phone call. "Hello, Franklin," I said to my lawyer of 30 years. "I need to discuss some property matters with you. Specifically, a house I helped purchase for my daughter and her husband." Franklin had helped me draft the original agreement when I contributed the $180,000. He knew exactly what protections I'd put in place. "Evelyn, according to the deed, you're listed as having 40% ownership interest in the property. They can't force you out without buying out your share. And if they can't afford to buy me out? Then you have every legal right to stay, or to force a sale of the property to recoup your investment." I nodded to myself. Just as I thought. Next, I called my financial advisor. "Patricia, I need to know how quickly I can liquidate some of my investments. Not everything, just enough to create a safety net. Would you be prepared if someone tried to take everything from you tomorrow?" Subscribe now for more stories of financial self-defense that could save your future. My third call was to my realtor friend, Beverly. "Bev, how's the housing market looking right now? Specifically for 5-bedroom homes in Danielle's neighborhood." "Hot as ever, Evelyn. Those houses are selling within days of listing, often above asking price." "And if a homeowner is behind on payments? How would that affect things?" "They'd need to catch up fast or risk foreclosure in this market. Banks aren't being patient right now." I thanked her and made one final call, to the mortgage company holding the loan on the house. I'm calling to inquire about account number 87421-3B, I said, reading from the statement I'd found in their mail. Yes, I'd looked through their mail. When survival is at stake, niceties sometimes need to be set aside. Ma'am, are you the account holder? I'm Evelyn Brooks, listed on the deed as co-owner. After verifying my identity, the truth emerged. They were 4 months behind on the mortgage. Tyrone had been diverting money to his failing business rather than paying for the roof over his family's head. The pieces fell into place. Tyrone wasn't just trying to claim my space. He was planning to refinance the house, pull out equity, my equity, and use it for his business. But with their payment history, no bank would approve a refinance. He needed me gone so he could sell the house outright, or at least create the illusion of financial stability. For months, I'd been covering utilities, groceries, and home repairs without realizing I was also subsidizing their lifestyle while they neglected the mortgage. Within 2 weeks, I quietly made several key moves. First, I liquidated some of my investments. Not all, but enough to secure my future. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Tyrone had no knowledge of. Second, I withdrew my name from all joint utilities and subscription services. No more would my credit card be the backup payment method for their electricity, water, internet, streaming services, or grocery deliveries. Third, I stopped covering the gaps in their household budget. No more slipping Danielle cash for little extras. No more quietly paying for home repairs. No more subsidizing their lifestyle. And finally, the most strategic move, I contacted the mortgage company again, this time making it clear that while I was on the deed, I was not on the mortgage. I would not be responsible for catching up their delinquent payments. I'll be moving out soon, I informed them. And I thought you should know the property owners are planning to refinance despite being several months behind on payments. Was this petty? Perhaps. Necessary? Absolutely. All the while, I maintained my calm demeanor around Tyrone and Danielle. I began packing boxes slowly, donating clothes I no longer needed, organizing my personal documents. I behaved exactly as Tyrone expected, like a defeated old woman preparing to slink away. Found a place yet? He'd ask every few days, growing more confident with each interaction. Still looking, I'd reply, eyes downcast, playing the role he expected. Meanwhile, the noose of financial reality was tightening around his neck. Without my silent contributions, their household expenses became increasingly difficult to manage. The past due notices arrived with growing urgency. The red final notice stamps became more frequent. Danielle grew more anxious, working extra shifts to try to catch up. Tyrone grew more irritable, his business failing as his suppliers demanded payment for the expensive inventory sitting unsold in the garage. One evening, I overheard another argument, this one more heated than usual. The mortgage company called again, Tyrone. They're threatening foreclosure. I told you I'm handling it. The big sale is coming through next week. That's what you said last month. And the month before that. What do you want me to do, Danielle? Ask your mother for money again? Is that it? Maybe we should. At least until we catch up. His voice dropped lower, more threatening. Your mother will be gone soon. Then we can sell this place, get something smaller, more manageable. Sell? You never said anything about selling. We might not have a choice now. Unless you want to lose everything. I sat quietly in my room, listening to the chaos I had helped orchestrate. Not with malice, but with purpose. Sometimes, lessons can only be learned through consequences. The foreclosure notice arrived exactly as I predicted, a certified letter that Tyrone had to sign for. I was in the kitchen when he opened it, watching his face transform from annoyance to shock to rage. He looked up at me, eyes narrowing with sudden suspicion. Did you know about this? he demanded, waving the letter. I sipped my tea calmly. Know about what, Tyrone? This foreclosure notice. Did you call the bank? Did you say something to them? I met his gaze steadily. Why would I do that? This isn't my house anymore, remember? You made that very clear. His face darkened with fury as realization dawned. Too late, he was beginning to understand the game I'd been playing all along. The next morning, Tyrone stormed into my suite without knocking, foreclosure notice clutched in his hand. His designer shirt was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. What did you do? He shouted, voice echoing against the walls. I set down my book calmly. I didn't do anything, Tyrone. I simply stopped doing things. What does that mean? His voice cracked with panic. It means I stopped covering your bills. I stopped paying for repairs. I stopped slipping Danielle money that you thought she was earning from extra shifts. His face contorted. You had no right. I had every right, I interrupted, my voice level but firm. It's my money, Tyrone. Just like it's my name on 40% of the deed to this house. He froze. What did you just say? You never read the paperwork, did you? When I contributed $180,000 to the down payment, my lawyer made sure I retained 40% ownership interest in the property. The blood drained from his face as I continued. You can't force me out without buying my share. And since you can't even pay the mortgage, I'm guessing that's not an option for you. He lunged forward, towering over me where I sat. You manipulative old. Careful, Tyrone, I warned. You might want to think very carefully about your next words. His fists clenched at his sides. For a moment, I wondered if he might strike me. Instead, he spat, This isn't over. Actually, it is, I replied, reaching for a folder on my nightstand. You see, I've initiated proceedings to sell the house. You can't do that. As 40% owner with evidence that the mortgage is in default, yes, I absolutely can. Have you ever seen someone realize they've been outplayed? Drop a heart if you've witnessed someone's plan collapse when they thought they were invincible. Danielle appeared in the doorway, Malik on her hip, her face ashen. Mom? What's happening? Your mother thinks she owns this house, Tyrone snarled. Not the whole house, I corrected. Just 40%. Which gives me certain legal rights when the mortgage isn't being paid. Danielle's eyes widened. The mortgage? Tyrone, you told me we were catching up. We were. We are. He turned on her. This is your fault too. If you hadn't insisted your mother move in. Don't you dare blame her, I cut in. You've been failing at business after business while pretending to be successful. You've neglected your financial responsibilities. You've tried to push me out of a home I helped buy. And now you want to blame Danielle. His facade cracked completely. He knocked a lamp off the side table, making Malik cry out in fear. This house was supposed to be our fresh start. Now the bank's calling, suppliers are threatening lawsuits, and you, he jabbed a finger toward me, you've ruined everything. You ruined it yourself, Tyrone, I said quietly. I just stopped enabling you. Within a week, reality crashed down like an avalanche. The foreclosure process accelerated when I provided documentation of my ownership stake and formally withdrew support for any refinancing attempts. Without my signature, Tyrone couldn't sell or refinance the property. His business collapsed next. 3 of his suppliers filed lawsuits claiming he'd sold merchandise without paying for it. His inventory was seized, his business accounts frozen. Then came the anonymous tip to the IRS, not from me, but from one of his disgruntled associates. They launched an investigation into his creative accounting practices, particularly his habit of claiming personal expenses as business deductions. I watched it unfold with mixed emotions. I took no joy in Tyrone's destruction, but I recognized its necessity. Some people only learn through consequences. Danielle was devastated. Her dream home, her stable marriage, her financial security, all illusions shattered at once. She moved through the house like a ghost, caring for Malik mechanically, avoiding both Tyrone and me. I trusted him, she whispered one night, finding me in the kitchen. I believed in him. I know, baby, I said, pulling her into my arms for the first hug she'd allowed in months. What happens now? She asked, tears soaking my shoulder. Now we rebuild, I promised. Together. Tyrone's behavior grew more erratic as his world collapsed. He stayed out late, coming home smelling of expensive cologne and cheap alcohol. He blew up at the slightest provocation. He avoided Malik entirely, as if fatherhood was just another failed venture. The final break came when Danielle discovered credit card statements showing charges at high-end restaurants and hotels, dates that coincided with nights he claimed to be networking. The receipts showed tables for two, not business meetings. He's been cheating, she said flatly, spreading the evidence on my bed. All while telling me we had no money for Malik's checkups. That night, they had their final argument. I kept Malik in my suite, singing softly to drown out the shouting. When morning came, Tyrone was gone. No goodbye to Danielle. No kiss for Malik. Just empty drawers and a note, I need space to sort things out. Don't try to contact me. 3 days later, we learned he'd flown to Atlanta with a woman he'd met at one of his business mixers. A week after that, Danielle discovered he'd emptied their joint savings account, the little that remained after months of financial mismanagement. The house sold quickly in the hot market, despite the foreclosure threat. After settling the mortgage and associated fees, my 40% translated to just over $200,000. Danielle's share was similar, though Tyrone would legally be entitled to part of it, if he ever showed his face again. We found a modest apartment for Danielle and Malik while I stayed with my sister temporarily. The life they'd known was gone. The facade had crumbled completely. But in that rubble lay the foundation for something far more valuable: truth. 6 months passed in a blur of adjustments. Danielle worked extra shifts at the hospital. I watched Malik 3 days a week. We existed in a new normal, smaller, humbler, but built on honesty. Then came the knock at my sister's door. Danielle stood on the porch, Malik balanced on her hip, rain dripping from both their heads. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her shoulders slumped with defeat. "He's gone, Mom," she said, voice breaking. "Really gone." Tyrone had filed for divorce from Atlanta, where he'd moved in with his new girlfriend. The papers demanded nothing: no child support, no visitation rights for Malik. He'd abandoned them completely, signing away his parental rights in exchange for Danielle not pursuing his share of the house proceeds. "I've got nothing left," she whispered. "I can't make rent next month. I might lose my apartment. I don't know what to do." I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I simply opened my arms and held my daughter and grandson as they cried. "Stay here tonight," I said gently. "Tomorrow, I want to show you something." The next morning, I drove them to a modest neighborhood 15 minutes from Danielle's workplace. We pulled up in front of a cheerful 3-bedroom ranch house with a fenced yard and a maple tree out front. "What is this place?" Danielle asked, confusion etching her features. I handed her a key. "It's your new home. If you want it." Her mouth fell open. "Mom, what did you do?" "I bought it," I explained, leading them up the walkway. 3 months ago, when I saw where things were heading with Tyrone. "It's in my name, but I want you and Malik to live here." Inside, the house was small but well maintained. Fresh paint, Hardwood floors, updated kitchen. Nothing fancy, nothing pretentious, just solid and real. I don't understand, Danielle said, watching Malik toddle across the living room. How can we afford this? You'll rent it from me, I explained. At a fair price that you can manage on your nurse's salary. And eventually, if you want, you can buy it from me through a rent-to-own arrangement. Hope flickered in her eyes, quickly replaced by shame. After everything that happened? After I chose Tyrone over you? After I let him push you out? Yes, I said simply. But there's one condition. Her face fell. What condition? Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone you love after they betrayed you? Comment below with your experience on forgiving without forgetting. You start therapy, I said firmly. Weekly sessions to help you process what happened with Tyrone. To understand the patterns that led you there. To rebuild your confidence and self-worth. Tears welled in her eyes. Why are you helping me? I don't deserve it. I took her hands in mine. This isn't just charity, Danielle. It's an investment. In you, in Malik, in our future together. You do deserve another chance. But you need to do the work to make sure you never end up with another Tyrone. She nodded slowly, squeezing my hands. Where will you live? I bought the duplex next door, I said with a small smile. Close enough to help with Malik, but with our own separate spaces. Boundaries are important for both of us. That conversation marked the beginning of our healing journey. Danielle started therapy the following week. I joined a support group for grandparents raising grandchildren part-time. We both had to examine our patterns. My tendency to overprotect and overreach, her vulnerability to charming manipulators. The first year was difficult. Danielle cried often, overwhelmed by single motherhood and the shame of her failed marriage. I struggled with finding the balance between supporting her and enabling her. We argued sometimes, honest disagreements where we both spoke our truths instead of swallowing resentments. Malik thrived in the stability of our new arrangement. He grew from a wobbly toddler to a confident preschooler who loved dinosaurs and building blocks. Danielle advanced at work, earning a promotion to charge nurse. I volunteered at the local elementary school, finding purpose beyond just being Danielle's mom or Malik's grandma. Tyrone faded from our lives like a bad dream. His sneaker business in Atlanta failed within months. The girlfriend left when the money ran out. He tried calling Danielle once, asking for a loan to get back on his feet. She declined politely but firmly, a moment of strength that made my heart swell with pride. As for me, I rebuilt my retirement savings carefully. I joined a book club, made new friends, even went on a few dates with a kind widower who taught history at the community college. Life bloomed again in unexpected ways. 2 years after that rainy night on my sister's porch, Danielle bought the house from me officially. We celebrated with a small barbecue in the backyard, watching Malik chase fireflies as twilight settled over our modest kingdom. I never thanked you properly, Danielle said, sitting beside me on the patio swing. For what? I asked. For letting everything fall apart when you could have fixed it. For having the courage to let me face consequences. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Sometimes love means letting people feel the full weight of their choices. I thought you'd abandoned me when you didn't fight Tyrone that night. When you just said, all right, and walked away. I never walked away, I corrected gently. I just stopped enabling. There's a difference. She leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she used to do as a little girl. The lesson cost us a lot. Yes, I agreed. But some lessons are worth the price. The moral of my story is simple. Generosity without boundaries invites disrespect. I loved my daughter and wanted to support her, but in doing so, I enabled Tyrone's arrogance and allowed myself to be mistreated in a home I helped create. True love sometimes means allowing painful consequences to unfold. It means trusting that the people you love are strong enough to rebuild from rubble. It means protecting your resources so you can offer real help when it's truly needed, not just bankrolling someone else's illusions. I could have screamed at Tyrone that night. I could have threatened legal action immediately. I could have created a dramatic scene that would have changed nothing fundamental about our situation. Instead, I chose the power of quiet dignity and strategic patience. I reclaimed my power without lowering myself to his level. I protected what was mine without destroying what my daughter needed to learn. Sometimes the strongest response to disrespect isn't a loud argument or a dramatic exit. Sometimes it's simply taking everything away and watching from a distance as reality delivers the lesson you never could. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? Subscribe to hear more stories about reclaiming your power with dignity instead of drama. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment.